Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In Your Podcast with your hosts, Collin and Braeden Cox, as we record here on February 12th, Wednesday, 3 days after the Philadelphia Eagles overcome the Kansas City Chiefs in dominant fashion in Super Bowl 59. I think most people really weren't expecting this dominant of a performance by the Eagles, because, the Chiefs still have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But the Eagles, got to give them credit, took care of business and dominated all sides of the ball, the trenches, the skill players, and secondary, everything between the coaching. But yeah, in the yard here, Brady and I both said we thought the Chiefs were going to win, just because, Mahomes and Andy Reid, they've been doing their thing. And we thought, this was year for the three-peat, and they came up. They came up just short, but they did get blown out in the Super Bowl. So I don't know if it's just short is the right term, but they made it to the big game, and just couldn't pull it out. So Brady and I are going to view our reaction to that here, and then we're also at the end of the episode going to give you our top five current QBs, kind of a third anniversary of that, Braden. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the lists are pretty similar to what we've had in the past, but we'll get into that um, as well. So yeah, Brady, give me your reaction. I know you're kind of close to Philly, being in Wilmington. So were you
Yeah.
able to hear the chattering and the fireworks and the hype after they won, or was it pretty quiet in
Yeah.
Wilmington?
I mean, in Wilmington, it wasn't too crazy. I was out at I was at a bar, and of course, it was all, lots of Eagles fans. And like once it was official, it was a little chaotic in the bar in the street a little bit, but nothing like what it was on Broad Street. I saw fireworks. I saw people hanging from poles, whatnot, just in clips online. But yeah, man, I don't think either of us, like, we both picked the Chiefs, but we both pick the Chiefs because of the Chiefs. Like, we both pretty much said that, like, the Eagles are the better team here, but we can't pick them because they're playing
Mm-hmm.
the Chiefs, because it's kind of the thing where until I see it happen, I can't pick against them. And it happened. We saw it happen. Um, so I mean, like, I can't say I'm like too surprised that the Eagles won the game. What I am surprised about is the way that they did it in dominant fashion. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but at one point in this game, it was 34 nothing, right?
I
Something
know
like
it's
that.
27-0,
27 nothing,
maybe
something like
34.
that.
It might have been 34. I don't know, but
It was at least like a 3 or 4 score game at one point.
yeah, no, I think it was
And
27-0 at halftime.
yeah, that's the surprise to me, is the way that the Eagles did it. Dominant on the line of scrimmage. Um, Pretty much made the Chiefs offensive line look silly all game. Um, and I'm not trying to take credit away from what the offense did as a whole, right? But I think the defense is what really gave this team the juice that they needed to win, right? Because, you know, whatever way you want to, cut it up, right? The pick six by Cooper DeJean and the pick by Mahomes, like in enemy territory at what, like the 2 yard line or something like that. It
Mm-hmm.
was really close. Like he basically gave him 14 points in the first half, like that. Um, and the final score was by what, 18 points. So I'm not. The
Mm-hmm.
game obviously plays out a little bit different if those picks aren't thrown, but you get what I'm saying. Um, the Chiefs and Mahomes kind of gave this game away. I feel like the Eagles from the jump were the better team. I kind of expected that, but you know, the heroics from Mahomes, we never really got in this game, unless you want to count like the two late scores
Mm-hmm.
as heroics, but it was kind of out of out of the equation by that point anyway.
Right.
So again, I'm not too surprised that the Eagles won this game, but if you would have told me the final score is going that the Eagles are going to win by 3 scores and they're going to score 40 points, that I would have been a little bit surprised about.
Yeah.
But I give credit where credit's due. Jalen Hurts really stepped up. Besides that one pick, I can't really point at any one thing that, I wasn't too impressed with. Um, but what I will say is the offense didn't really need to do that much because the defense was firing on all cylinders, and the fact that they were getting the turnovers by the Chiefs enabled it so that the offense didn't need to be perfect, right? Because most of the time you need to play perfect against these Chiefs to win. on all sides of the ball. And the Eagles won all sides of the ball. They were better offensive, defensive, special teams for sure. Um, but they didn't need to be stellar offensively to get the job done. So
Yeah. No, I was happy. I was happy for the Eagles. I was happy for Jalen. He has a pretty great overall story. Um,
yeah,
kind of being the runner up to Tua in the national championship because he got benched
yeah,
at halftime back in college. Um, just I think he lost to Joe Burrow in the Heisman when he was at Oklahoma, and then obviously a couple of years ago losing to Mahomes in the Super Bowl by I think it was by 3. So he was in that
yeah,
game too. I thought he played great that game as well. And then obviously the addition of Saquon this year. I kind of knew like when the Eagles got Swick, I'm like, wow, that's a big get for them. Um, and obviously it's paid off. And I don't see them slowing down. I know they spend a lot of money, but it's not really like any of their players are really aging all that much. But so I know you said I think the Chiefs are still the favorite for next year. I would say you get the roll with the Eagles. So just because of the way they dominated,
yeah,
I think they had a little bit of slow start. Like the first like 4 weeks or so were a little slow, but I think like week 5 they just turned it up. I know they
yeah.
beat my Bengals like 37-17, like in like September or October, and I think it was October actually. Um, and just took care of business throughout the playoffs, um, dominated the Packers kind of. And like you said, like I just wanted to add to your point, like how Patrick Mahomes like didn't look great, right? Didn't seem like Patrick Mahomes. I think a lot has to do with the Eagles' credit. I think, like we said in previous episodes, they just make teams look really bad and sloppy. And even Mahomes, I think they pulled out all the stunts that they haven't used in the regular season. I think they pulled it out one last time for the Super Bowl and flustered Mahomes. And ended up getting the W. So yeah, good for the Eagles. And I think I didn't really know who I was going to root for. I didn't really want to root for either team. I was just gonna watch the game. But as soon as the game started, for some reason, I was like a Go Birds fan. Just because I didn't want to
That's
see
fair.
Mahomes and Kelsey win one
Yeah,
more. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm happy
And
they won. Um, but yeah, that's what I
and
wanted to say.
what's interesting about this game, and I think it comes goes back to because the defense was so stellar, Saquon wasn't even really a factor.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I want to credit
They
Jalen
got
Hurts
such a
because
big lead that they could just kind of control the
because
clock, run the ball a few times, and then Jalen
yeah,
would hit somebody.
yeah, because the Chiefs were like, okay, we're not letting Saquon beat us. We're gonna make Jalen Hurts beat us. And then
Like,
Jalen said, okay, I'll do my thing. And he kind of didn't make any spectacular. The one to Devontae Smith, I think it was
that's
already like
great.
27-0 at that time. I think
Yeah,
that's what made it 34-0 or thirty-four
yeah,
three. I think that was the dagger, and I think it was a great throw, a great play because everyone was expecting a run there just to chew some clock.
yeah,
And then I also got to give credit to Nick Sirianni. Kind of had that little incident in the beginning of the season as well, where he's yelling at the Eagles fans. Um,
yeah,
but he's turned it around. As I saw he was getting a lot of heat in that October where they had the slow start. I know some
yeah.
Eagles fans were calling for his job, but he proved them wrong too. So
And that's gonna
overall,
happen every
overall
year in
good
Philly.
underdog story. That's true. But I mean, you don't see Chiefs fans calling for Andy Reid's job or anything like that. So
True. This is true. Another thing I'll add on the Chiefs before we move to the quarterback discussion is I don't know about you, but it felt like they weren't ready. It felt like that they were a step behind from the national anthem. Like, I don't know what it was. The Eagles seemed far more prepared for this game. And I'm not
yeah,
trying to like diminish what the Eagles did at all. And I'm not trying to, you know, you know, say that the
yeah,
Chiefs
yeah.
underprepared or anything like
The
that. But
unpreparedness
like,
is very unlike Andy Reid and Mahomes. But yeah, keep going to your point.
exactly, exactly. And the two picks by Mahomes were like bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't like that they were like, you know, tipped up or anything like that. And it just, you know what I mean? Like they were
Yeah.
bad reads, especially the second one.
The Cooper
The
DeJean
second one
one
was,
with the pick six was really bad. The pick six was really bad, I thought. I think
yeah,
the second one he kind of got hit a little bit.
he got hit a little bit, but it was still like an
Yeah.
odd, it
Read,
was
yeah.
almost like too much
It,
Superman,
it, it was like
where
it would
like
have been
he
a tight
tried to make a
window.
play
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
He tried to make a play when like the ball, he should have just either taken the sack or tossed it away. Especially in that part of the field because I texted you. like when it was like 17-0, I was like, okay, like the Chiefs need to score here. And then it was 24-0. And I said, if they don't score here, the game's over. And then that happened. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, like this is over because they you can't get that far behind against this like potent of an offense. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, so I mean, kudos to the Eagles, I guess, is where I have to leave it. I mean, the offensive line, the defensive line was stellar the whole game. Um, yeah, that's all I really got there. Congrats to the Eagles. I think next year, I don't know about you, but I would have to lean that we're getting a rematch next year. And I'm not just saying that because it felt like that these were the two best teams this year that made it to the Super Bowl. But you have to pick the Chiefs because they've been in how many straight years now. And the Eagles, even with Detroit, like they're gonna get healthy. Like Detroit will definitely be a threat. But this Eagles team, like now that they've got one, like look out. I feel like they're going to be scary. There's obviously other teams that could pose a threat to them, and we saw last year they ended up like playing on the road in the wild card route against Tampa, and they fell short there like significantly, and a lot of people picked against them. So you don't know what's going to happen as the season progresses, right? But I feel like right now, the way that they played in the Super Bowl, you have to pick them
Yeah.
to
They're
to win the
dominant.
NFC again.
Yeah. They had pretty dominant, easy run. I don't say
Yeah,
easy run, but they made it look easy um, throughout the whole
yeah,
playoffs and even toward the regular season. Just they just look like a great team. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think I got everything squared away. Congrats to the Eagles. Happy
yep,
for their fans. We have we've had some Eagles fans come on as Phillies fans on the pod.
yeah,
So yeah, congratulations to the Eagles. And like I texted you, Braeden, I said I hope Philadelphia enjoys it now because in July the Phillies will be third in the East. So, but we'll get
that'll
into
be a
that.
whole nother
We'll get to that
discussion.
in another
That'll be
episode.
discussion in the next few weeks, but we have
Couple
for
weeks,
sure.
yes.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I haven't really decided that yet. But yeah, congrats to the Eagles and yeah, enjoy your Super Bowl win. All right.
yeah,
Does this? I think, like I said before, I think I feel the best for Jalen Hurts. I'm glad he
yeah,
won. Glad he got one. Um, but but yeah, that's all I got.
yeah. Cool. Want to get in the top QBs now?
Yeah, let's get into the top QB. Speaking of Mahomes and Hurts, um, yeah, let's get into top QBs. So so right now we're doing we I think the first episode was top 10, but that kind of took like way long.
Yeah,
Um, so I think we're gonna do like top five, maybe with an honorable mention, Braden, right?
yeah.
So do you want to go 5 to 1 or do you want to go 1 to 5?
No, I say we go. I don't know what's more interesting. Maybe 1 to 5 is more interesting in this case.
Yeah, because
Let's
I
do that.
feel we're gonna have the same one, but I
Yeah,
feel like 2 through 5 could be it's a
yeah.
toss
It's
up
gonna be all over
between
the
all of
place.
those. Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
We'll start with one.
start with one. Ready? We'll say at the same
Yeah,
time.
ready?
3, 2, 1. Kenny Pickett.
Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I knew
Uh,
you were gonna say Kenny Pickett. That he's in there for me, but
one
I can't
ring.
put him
He
at
has
one
more
just yet.
more rings than Allen, more rings than Lamar, more rings than Joe
Burrow.
Burrow. Has as
I
many rings as
love
Matthew
Dak
Stafford.
Prescott.
Yeah. So that's why I cracked my top five. Kenny Pickett,
Yeah,
more rings than
now
anyone.
that
All
that's
right.
fair. I can't even.
In all seriousness, yes, I had Patrick Mahomes as well. Um, I think even though he lost this the other day, he's won two in a row. They were going for a three-peat. Um, and I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, this you cannot compare this guy to Tom." Tom also has lost. I think he lost three Super Bowls, right?
Yeah,
Um, so like, and Mahomes has still only lost two. I can't picture Mahomes not winning at least one more by the time his career is over. I just can't. Right?
yeah,
At least one more, maybe two, maybe three. He might even tie Tom at one point, as long as he stays healthy.
yeah,
But yeah, what he's done, and like I think this is the third year in a row he's been number one on our list, right?
yeah,
Um, it's just pretty much pure dominance until the other day on Sunday. But maybe a couple things go his way. Maybe they have a little bit different of a game plan. Could be talking about a different story. But yeah, I'm still gonna go Mahomes one, even though he got kind of crushed this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean he's still the scariest guy to play in the league, regardless of how dominant. You could sit here and say, well, I think this guy had better years, and we would sit here and be like, yeah, right, 100%. There's a reason why he wasn't in like the MVP race, but he's still the scariest guy to play, and that might be, you know, elements including him, including Andy Reid, including Travis Kelce, including Chiefs Kingdom overall. But he's the quarterback. He's going to get the credit. He makes magnificent throws. Um, he's a dominant player, and he just the Eagles outplayed him. So
Yeah,
I got Mahomes 1-2, pretty
Mahomes
easy.
won.
I don't have to think about that one too much. The next ones is when it gets, you have to kind of juggle a bunch of different
Yes.
names.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, give me your number two then now.
Yeah, so this guy is going to be my number two purely because I think he was the best quarterback this year in the NFL. And in my opinion, he probably wins the MVP if he wins the head-to-head in the playoffs, and it's going to be Lamar. You're going to have to go Lamar here. I don't know, man. He's kind of elite throwing the ball and running the ball. Yes, he fell short in the playoffs. I get it. I get the narrative. Josh Allen fell short in the playoffs. A ton of guys have fallen short in the playoffs, especially when you have to go to the AFC and Patrick Mahomes. Um, but like just based off of the stats and based off what I saw as far as the eye test goes, this was the best guy this year, in my opinion. I still have him behind Mahomes, but we explained why. I'm not trying to take away from Allen's MVP by any means. Um, but to me, Lamar is probably the better player this year, but Josh Allen won the head to head in the postseason, and they kind of took that into account, which is okay. Like I'm not mad at that Allen got the MVP at all, but you know, just my opinion. I would put Lamar at two,
That's fair. I mean,
and he's young. He's relatively young.
yeah, two MVPs. Hard to argue that. But I thought you were on the Josh Allen MVP train kind of since week seven or so. Did you change your mind on
Yeah,
that
I
one?
mean, I'm not again. I'm not opposed to it. I'm glad he won the MVP, but I think eye test wise, Lamar was a little bit more dominant.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Lamar is more dominant than Josh Allen. You'll find out
And I
here
think
in a
Lamar
second.
wins it
Yeah,
wins it if
yeah,
he wins the playoff game.
yeah. And I see it, Brett. I see it twice a year with Lamar. The Bengals playing the Ravens twice
Yeah,
a year,
yeah,
and it's just crazy to watch him play. I mean, when him and Burrow are both hot in those AFC North games, it's fun to watch. And then obviously my Bengals got the short and the stick both times this year. But just watching Lamar make some of his plays, there's not many people in the league that could do it like he does. And honestly, like he really doesn't have many lethal like options to go to. You have Isaiah Likely, but he
exactly.
wouldn't. You like he's probably his what number one receiver probably, and you wouldn't
Yeah.
put him in the
Mark
same
Andrews,
conversation. Yeah, Mark Andrews, who's a tight end, like great tight end, right?
Zay
Um,
Flowers.
yeah, like you wouldn't
Their
put
best
those in the
offensive
same.
weapon is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my point. Like you wouldn't really put those guys in the same conversation as Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or
Exactly.
Travis Kelsey or Stephon Diggs, right? Um, So yeah, I just got to give credit to Lamar. Um, but Brady, my number two is Jalen Hurts.
Hmm.
He was my number three. He was my number three the first time we did this. I think he
Okay.
was out of my top five last year just because the Eagles had such a bad season.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, was that when did they when did the Giants make the playoffs? That was
2 years ago.
that was 2 years
Not
ago.
last year, the year before.
Okay, interesting. Anyway, um, lost my train of thought. But yeah, I'm going. He has a Super Bowl now. He's been to two Super Bowls and has won one of them. Yes, I know he has a bunch of talent around him. Great offensive line, great running back. But the Chiefs, like I said previously, the Chiefs said, "All right, Jalen Hurts, you're gonna have to beat us," and he did. He did. I
Yeah.
mean, he had one turnover. Um, it was kind of what could have been a cause turn because it was in their they're about to score there at least a field goal, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, I think he stepped up, made the throws he had to, didn't make any bad decisions, and it's not like the Chiefs' defense is no joke, right? They were shutting down Saquon.
And the Chiefs defense played well,
Yeah, I mean, I think you know
largely.
the Eagles' defense played really well also. But I just can't argue the fact that Jalen Hurts was the one that was able to beat Mahomes. Um, you know, Lamar's had a couple cracks at it. Allen's had multiple cracks at it. Burrow's 500 against Mahomes in the playoffs, and Jalen was ultimately able to overcome Mahomes. And everyone was saying that Mahomes was going to win. Not everyone, but me and you were. But yeah, Jalen is my number two, just for the fact that he was able to beat Mahomes and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jalen's my number three for basically the exact same reasons you gave. Maybe that's a surprise to you. But when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, okay, the guys who have beaten Mahomes in the playoffs are Tom Brady, simple, right? Joe Burrow, that crazy run that year. And now it's Jalen Hurts. And I'm like, that carries a little bit more weight than what traditionally I think it would. And again, he wasn't dominant this year. I mean, he was like averaging, he had games where he was throwing like 136 yards, right? So as far as like top tier talent at the quarterback position, I probably wouldn't put him in the top five. But I think because the system, he's got such a great offensive line. He's got Devontae Smith, he's got AJ Brown, he's got Dotson, and now he's got Saquon. It's just kind of like a perfect storm, and it's not fair for me to like knock him down points just because he's got a good team around him. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
basically my argument for him.
right.
Do I think Josh Allen is more talented? Do I think Lamar is more talented? Mahomes is more talented? Yes, right. But this is a perfect storm for Jalen Hurts, and he won the Super Bowl MVP. He was very good in the game. I think the defense, like I said, is what really powered this team to victory. But the offense and Jalen Hurts, played well enough to win the game straight up.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to have, for basically the same exact reasons you said, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to put Jalen at three.
Right. No, it's a fair point. Um, my number three is Lamar, so we just flip flop those, and we already discussed what Lamar's done, two MVPs. Just can't quite beat Mahomes in the playoffs. Thinks or just can't quite win the playoffs, but I don't think it's really his fault. He does
Yeah,
elevate his team around him. He's a threat. Like I said, just doesn't have as many weapons, and the defense wasn't as great this year as they have been in past. But yeah, I still gotta go with Lamar at three.
yeah,
Yeah, but we already touched on
um,
Lamar, so I think we go to 4 or 5, right?
yeah, yeah. So my four is the current MVP, Josh Allen. I kind of already talked about him. Spectacular season, kind of like a similar, you know, in this similar realm as Lamar, where you like look at their offensive weapons and you're like, okay, there's James Cook, and like who's the next best guy? You know what I mean? So it feels like that he's doing a lot with like not like premier talent in the NFL, not to take away from any of those guys. Um, but yeah, I mean he's the current MVP. There's a reason why it was him and Lamar. 0-4 against Mahomes in the playoffs does probably knock him down. Like, if he would have had a win against Mahomes or a like super, super impressive win in the postseason that I can look back on, he'd probably be three here, but he doesn't. So again, like I think you can largely put these like three
Yeah,
guys that we're talking about right now in any order, two, three, four, and I wouldn't be mad. But because Allen 0-4 in the playoffs, I still think that he could totally win a Super Bowl. I think it's more of a question of, you know, not like if he's going to get one, it's when, because
yeah,
as far as talent wise, like he played well enough in that AFC championship game to, justify winning the game, and it just didn't go his way. So I got him at four.
yeah. Now I also have Josh Allen at 4. It was
Okay.
toss up between him and Lamar for 3-4. Last second I went Lamar 3, and Allen 4, just because the fact that Allen is 0-5 in the playoffs now. I think like overall because he's 0-4 against Mahomes and then 0-1 against Burrow. Like I love Josh Allen as much as he's probably my
Those are his
second favorite
losses too.
quarterback
Yeah.
in the league. Um, Second favorite quarterback in the league. I want to see him win one eventually, right? But the fact that he just doesn't make that next step to get to the Super Bowl, or to get to the AFC Championship game, and give themselves a chance at the Super Bowl. It just knocks them down a couple ranks for me. So I'm going Josh Allen for, but I do want to see him win one. He's probably my favorite quarterback in this group besides Joe Burrow. Um, but yeah, I'm going with Allen at 4 for pretty much the same reasons you said before. And it's kind of similar to Lamar where he doesn't have those weapons around him. It seems like they traded away Stephon Diggs this year, right? He has a great O line, solid defense, but I think we talked about this last episode where the coaching staff seems to hold him back a little bit. Um, and he kind of has to be Superman during the regular season, and then they play a good team with well coached team like the Chiefs, right? And they just can't get it done. I think the Chiefs have their number, but yeah, I'm going Allen at 4 here. All right, Bray. Yeah, so give me your number 5 then.
Yeah, so my fifth and final is going to be Joe Burrow.
I think I
Maybe
knew.
a unpopular take. But to me, if this guy has any sort of defense this year, and yeah, I get like it is a problem that they have missed the playoffs the past 2 years, but if he has any sort of defense this year, he probably wins the MVP or he's at least like in the conversation for it. It probably would have been a three-legged race between him, Allen, and Lamar. Um, And I feel like that you have to give some credit there is like if they weren't giving up on average, what, 38 points a game or something like that. I know it wasn't that high, but you get what I'm saying. If they weren't giving up as many points as they were, they would have had more wins and then they would have made the playoffs. And then once you make the playoffs, we said right on here, um, like you don't want the Bengals to get in. Like I don't care how bad their defense is, like you wouldn't want to play the Bengals in the playoffs simply because offensively, they're very explosive. Um, and he has beaten Mahomes. He has played in the Super Bowl. He didn't win, but I think he's capable of it. Another thing that like would concern me about someone like Joe Burrow is age, but I can't use that argument too much simply because Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, all like they're all kind of around the same age. Like Jalen's the youngest guy on this list, and he's been in the league for 4 years, right? So, um, yeah, I think I'm happy with my list. I think that I covered all the guys that I think are elite in the league. I gave credit where credit's due. But I didn't want to leave someone like Joe Burrow just completely off the list because he missed the playoffs the past 2 years. Now, if this becomes a trend where they're just not making the playoffs, even if it isn't on him, it's going to affect his standings in something like this because like Allen's 0-4 against Mahomes in the playoffs, but like Allen has played Mahomes in the playoffs 4 times. You know what I mean? Burrow's played him twice. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like one of those things where yeah, we're knocking Allen for being 0-4 against Mahomes, but if Burrow makes the playoffs the past 2 years, we could be talking about Burrow being 1-3 against Mahomes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
Yeah,
it's kind of a pick and choose there. So
right.
yeah, I like Joe
That's
Burrow.
a good point. Um, yeah, Joe Burrow to me is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I might be a little biased as a Bengals fan, but the fact of the matter is he doesn't. Not that he doesn't win games, but the fact that they haven't made the playoffs. Their last good run was 3 years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
Was that 2 or 3? No, they're 2 years ago. They were really good in the season after they lost the Super Bowl. They were really good that season too. So that was 2 years ago, I
Yeah,
think.
they just fell short again.
They just fell. They
They
lost
just
to
fallen short, yeah.
Mahomes on a field goal, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Brady, the Super Bowl run, which static time for me. That was 3 years ago now. This team is completely different. I think Joe Burrow has gotten better. I think Joe Burrow has gotten better as a quarterback. Um, but to me, a big thing, Braden, is wins. I to me as a Bengals fan, it doesn't matter how good Joe is playing. He even said it. He was on a podcast today. He even said it himself, like it doesn't matter if the offense is scoring 40 points a game, even if they're losing, it doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's why Braden it might be surprising to you. I went Jaden Daniels at my number 5 for the
Okay.
Just I mean, Jaden Daniels head to head against Burrow on Monday Night Football, Week 3. Jaden Daniels wins.
Sure.
And Jaden Daniels, made the playoffs this year. Kept kind of similar to Burrow. When Burrow also changed the Bengals franchise around. From not being in the playoffs or from being in the playoffs a few years but never winning going past the
Yeah.
wild card round. So got to give Joe Burrow credit there. But the thing that just the fact that Jaden Daniels made the playoffs, he turned the Commanders around. I think the Commanders were awful last year, right? Jaden Daniels comes in as a rookie, takes them to the playoffs, and then even wins a couple of games, takes them to the NFC Championship game, and upsets the Lions. And he just balled out. I think everyone's super impressed by the way he was playing. And then came up just short to the eventual Super Bowl champions Eagles. Um, so yeah, Brian, I have Jaden Daniels at 5 for my top 5. Tough love the Burrow there. As much as I love Joe Burrow, I think Joe Burrow is probably you could probably put him at 2. You probably could, but to me,
Yeah.
it comes down to, like you said, the fact
Wins.
that he hasn't made the playoffs in 2 years. I know last year he was injured, right? And this year, spectacular offensive season from him and the Bengals overall. But there were chances throughout the regular season where he could have put teams away offensively, and then couldn't get that game-winning field goal, that game-winning drive, and they ended up losing it. So that's why tough love for Burrow. But as much as I love Joe Burrow, if you're listening to this, don't take my opinion too seriously.
Let it, maybe if he's listening, it'll be like, it'll light a fire under him
Yeah,
or the
maybe
team
I'm
in
just maybe
general.
I'm using some reverse psychology
There
for
you
for
go.
bulletin board material.
Let me
Because
ask you
if
uh,
you ask other Bengals fans, they'd be roasting me right now for leaving Burrow out the top 5. But he hasn't made the playoffs in 2 years,
yeah.
so what are you gonna do?
No, I think it's totally fair. Winning does matter. Jalen Daniels won more this year. Um, you know, he's a good quarterback. I think his ceiling's extremely high. If I were to ask you to list your top six and you had to give me a sixth, would it be
Oh
Burrow?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. And I would say if you asked me to give another as my six, I would put
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels
I
simply
think
because the ceiling is so high. And
yeah,
I wouldn't typically do that
yeah,
because it's kind of like the thing that we did with CJ Stroud. Like CJ Stroud had like a really good rookie year, and then everyone was like, oh, he's top five. I'm like, high ceiling, but we need to see more.
that's true.
And he didn't really have a sophomore slump. He wasn't as good his sophomore year as his rookie year, but they still made it to the divisional round. Um, so that would be the only reason I wouldn't put Jaden Daniels in my top five is because
Yeah,
you've done it 1 year, right? Like, do it next year. Like, if
yeah,
he does this again next year,
yeah.
then we can have a
Good point.
legitimate conversation about like
Right,
this guy is going to be something
right,
special in the NFL.
right.
I just don't want to give him his flowers like
Too
too
soon.
early.
Yeah. Okay. That's
You
a
know what
fair
I mean?
point.
That's all it is.
That's a fair point.
Um,
Yeah, but to me, like watching Jaden Daniels, I don't see him slowing down at all. I think he'll probably only get better. CJ Stroud, you could see there's a lot of questions. He was really well coached. Not that Jaden Daniels isn't well coached either. Um, I just think, Jaden Daniels, he reminds me of Lamar, but probably a better passer, I would say. Um,
yeah,
and just I think he has a super, super high ceiling. And I think, he shows that he could win the big games. He almost brought his team to the Super Bowl in his first year. You don't really
yeah,
see that happen too often. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, it's just why I really like Jaden Daniels. I know he's young. I know I don't want to overreact too much, like you said. Um, but like I said, he turned the Commanders franchise around, made
yeah,
the playoffs, made the NFC Championship game in his rookie year. So yeah, that's why I had Jaden Daniels on my 5, and he beat Burrow head to
yeah,
head too.
yeah.
So
No, I can't disagree with you there. Another guy, I'm not gonna like keep listing guys because we can just go on and on. Another guy that I think deserves some flowers this year, and I think was just kind of put in a tough situation with injuries is Jared Goff, right? Like, you know, if there's not as many injuries, we could totally be having a conversation that they're Super Bowl champions, right? Because talent wise, they had it. And he was balling for a lot of the year. And I think, you know, we were seeing games where they were in like 45, 42 final games. And, like when you score that many points, like both teams deserve to win. You know what I mean? Like offensively, both teams were explosive, but fell short. So, I mean, you know, again, they did fall short, but I think Jared Goff, I'm not putting him in the top five. I don't even know where I would put him, but I think he deserves a shout out because I think if, you know, they aren't riddled with injuries and he wins the Super Bowl, we're probably putting him maybe in that fifth or fourth spot if he's, dominant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I had Jared Goff my top five last year.
Yeah.
But then again, right now, like to me, he looked okay, but not great in the NFC
Towards the
division
end.
round against
Yeah, I
Commanders. Yeah,
agree.
you could say it's because of injuries and stuff. But then again, Jaden Daniels goes into Detroit and just kind of dominates them. So that's why there's another
Yeah.
reason to put Jaden Daniels in my top five. But
Yeah.
another thing making this list, Brady, you just realize how good Mahomes actually is for pretty much wiping the floor with Lamar and Allen and Burrow, right? And even Jalen once. Jalen got him the other day, obviously. But I think that just also just shows how good Mahomes really is, beating all these great quarterbacks year in and year out in dominant fashion. So,
Yeah, for sure.
got anything else to add? I think I'm all set here.
That's it. I mean, it's fun doing this every single year. It gets kind of boring because we always put Mahomes at number one, but it's always fun to see, who's at 4 or 5 or in that range because that's what's going to change on a year-to-year basis. And who knows, is Travis Kelce going to retire? Like, what's going to happen with the Chiefs? Like, I'm not saying it's the end of the dynasty because I totally don't think that. I totally would pick them to return to the Super Bowl next year just because like we said, like until I see it, we saw them losing the Super Bowl, but they still did win the AFC after being, what looked like maybe the third best team in it behind a team like Buffalo, but a team like Baltimore. Baltimore, they still got there. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, we'll see. Maybe we're having a
Yeah.
conversation a year from now if someone like Josh Allen or Lamar, maybe a return to form for Joe Burrow can have a stellar season, win the Super Bowl. Maybe somebody just dethrones Patrick Mahomes in our in
Yeah.
our in our standings next year. Maybe,
Right.
but we'll see.
Yeah. See, I mean, tomorrow I might make a new top five. I might put Burrow at two. Just I'm like, okay, maybe the wins aren't the only thing that matter. But right now, when I'm making this, I just can't. I feel like I can't. I'm trying to be unbiased by not putting Joe in my top five when he didn't make the playoffs, kind of thing. So,
Fair.
um, but yeah, I think that about wraps it up here.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. That's our
Last football pod for a while.
yes, our last football pod. We don't really do much football off-season stuff because we're mostly focused on baseball. But if something big happens, something really big
Yeah, we'll
happens, we'll
react.
react to it. Like if there's like a T. Higgins trade or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if you're a baseball fan, definitely tune into some of our baseball episodes. We seem to get into pretty good debates about that. Um, and yeah, I think we're going to be doing. So last year we did divisional previews for each MLB team, or each MLB division. I mean, um,
Yeah.
so I think we're going to do that again. That was a lot of fun, and then seeing how our predictions play out. Some of them did not pan out very well.
Yeah.
Some of them were close, but some of them were pretty bad. So it's fun. Baseball's always so up in the air. You could think, you know, a team like the Athletics might do terrible, and then they go out and win 95 games. You never know. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so tune into those baseball episodes. And yeah, thanks for listening. Hope everyone enjoyed the Super Bowl. Let us know who you think should be in the top five conversation for quarterbacks going into this off season. And like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Yeah. See you guys.